Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Clocking in Early. I used to work for a business at the largest eyewear store in Australia. I was constantly complaining about the way my colleagues and I were treated, and I guess I was too important an employee for them to fire me for it. Here's where the fun begins. I was always a hard worker. I'd usually come into work an hour before my shift. That gave me about half an hour to play on my phone, have a snack, or just otherwise unwind before being ready to go. After about half an hour of that, I'd jump on my computer, sign myself in, and get started. I was never paid extra for this time. I simply clocked in early because that's when I started working. This was never expected of me, it was just something I did. Starting a little early made the day less stressful, and sometimes I'd do the job of some colleagues to help them as well, giving us all more time to have a better day at work. After about 6 months of this, I got called into a meeting with the store manager. She'd been advised by her manager, who was an absolute horrible woman, that there'd be issues with me clocking in early, and I was to stop. I raised my concern then and there that I'd be happy to stop, but it meant I wouldn't begin work until 9 AM on the dot. Now, we always used to open the doors just before 9 to let the first appointment come in to see the optometrist. And I was the only male in the store, and I was also the only non-elderly employee outside the optometrist. So I waited until 9 AM on the dot before clocking in, at which point I'd open the safe, go and get the till, count it out, put it all in order, then open the store. The roller door was heavy, nobody else could do it. This means the appointments that used to arrive at 8:45 were then waiting to even come into the store at 9:15. It threw the entire day out by over half an hour. By the end of the day, it threw almost every single appointment close to an hour behind. And at 5 on the dot, I'd sign off and walk out, leaving management to close the heavy door, pack up the till, do the daily stock take, etc. For the sake of them not wanting me to clock in half an hour early, without even expecting to be paid for it, they probably cost themselves about 10 hours per week in lost productivity. The last straw was when we were owed commission as a store, and they took it off us due to an accounting error at their end. I quit that week and left them in shambles. The next story is called Golf Rules. We, 4 of us, played golf this morning. Things get busy this time of year, so the course was pretty well booked solid. There were a number of groups of 4 in front of us, but right in front of us was just a single player by himself. By the time we got to the 3rd hole, we caught up with him, and the 5 of us were waiting on the group in front of him. Instead of just following behind him, we offered to have him join us and play as 5. Now, most golf courses don't allow 5 balls, because they tend to slow things down. But we were already waiting on the group ahead of us anyway, and no one was moving too quickly. So we were playing and keeping up with the group ahead until we got to the 8th hole. Suddenly, the course marshal pulls up and says that there was a complaint that there was a group of 5 on the course, which isn't allowed. We explained what happened, and that we were keeping up with the groups ahead, but were told that it wasn't allowed. So we sent a single player ahead by himself and told him to take his time. We had already been waiting 10 minutes on the group in front of us, and now we waited another 10 minutes for him to complete the hole. It was a par 3, and you can't hit until the group ahead leaves the green. By this time, there were 2 more groups lined up behind us on the 8th tee. We played the rest of the course at our normal speed and finished in under 4 hours, which is faster than required. But by the time we finished, the whole course was half an hour behind schedule. The last story is called Not Allowed to Leave Early. This happened about 5 or so years ago, when I was a junior developer for a bespoke software development house. I had been working for the company for a little under 2 years, and this was my first software development job. I was very loyal to the company, as they had taken a chance on me, so to speak. It is quite difficult to get your first development job here, as every company is looking for someone with some experience, even if you do have some qualifications. This was a small company with around 15 staff at its largest, including some administrative staff that was shared between this company and another company that the owner and CEO ran from the same premises. I lived about a 30 to 45 minute drive away on a good day, and always left for the office really early, at least an hour and a half before starting, in case of traffic. We were told we were allowed to work somewhat flexible hours, as long as we worked our time, but were always encouraged to be in by 8 AM. Because I often left early from home, I would often be in by 7, sometimes earlier. I had keys to the office, so I could let myself in. I arrived late one Monday morning, having been stuck in a huge amount of traffic. There were at least 4 accidents and a few broken down vehicles on the highway, so I arrived about 35 minutes late. I walked in, set up my laptop and started working. A few minutes later, my direct boss, the development manager, let's call him douche manager, looks at me irritably and asks where I have been. I told him that I had messaged him at around 6:45 to let him know traffic was bad and I may be late. That was the last I heard of it for then. I left work at 17:30, having worked through my lunch as usual, and 5 minutes before I should technically have left, considering what time I arrived. The next morning I arrived to a company-wide email from douche manager that read something like this. All staff need to work their hours. You are not allowed to leave early, unless you ask for permission. We will be docking salaries for time missed in the future. Douche manager. This was in spite of the fact that I had worked between 8 and 10 hours of overtime the week prior, and about 40 for the month. Needless to say, I was irritated. Other dev, who was another more senior developer at the company, was just as irritated as I was and worked nearly as many hours as I did. Overtime for development staff is pretty much always unpaid where I am from, so we aren't paid for the hours we work extra. I was offended that they would make this a public matter and would have reacted very differently if they had spoken to me in person, and perhaps been given me a chance to explain my perspective. We were also told when hired that this is give and take, and we work hard, but we play hard, etc., and were under the impression that they appreciated the hard work. I was running 3 to 5 projects at a time, which included development, creating spec docs, customer software support, meetings with the client, deployments, etc. This was the reason why I was constantly working overtime. Other dev and I walked out for a cigarette and discussed what we should do. We decided that from now on we would only work the hours for which we were paid. We arrived not before 7:50, even if we had to wait somewhere before arriving, and would start working at 8 sharp. We took every single lunch break to which we were entitled. We left at 5 on the dot, no matter how much work there still was to do. We also both immediately started looking for other work. A few weeks later, other dev came to me and let me know that he had found other work and that they wanted to interview me. He resigned that same day. I ended up being offered and signing a contract at the new company another week or so later, only a day before being called into a meeting with the douche manager and the CEO. They wanted to know why I had been, to use their term, clock watching, and they wanted to let me know that they were concerned about deadlines. Just to be clear, I had not been slacking at all. There was simply more work than what could be done during normal business hours. The look on their faces when I, in the same meeting, told them that the email that douche manager had sent to the whole company was completely inappropriate and that this is why I had been clock watching and was giving my notice was priceless. They tried to offer me a higher salary, but I felt as though the bridge was already burned at that point. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and would like to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.